Yes, and as we know, gas particularly is a very cyclical market. Energy is a cyclical market. I mean, this time last year, also a little bit further ago, you couldn't give it away. It was so cheap. So in many ways, I think the business models were based on the idea of basically pretty cheap energy, as we've already heard. So their idea was, well, it's nice and cheap. We can undercut the big boys by having much lower overheads and create competition in the market. And then people like me would go on into the media going, switch, go on, let's switch to one of these cheaper ones. And I personally have switched every year and fixed a good cheap deal until this year when suddenly it all fell apart.
It really did. I mean, to what extent do you think this really is a tipping point then? The tipping point maybe of the UK energy crisis?
Well, yes, it could be. It's so difficult to call, honestly, because as I say, energy is cyclical. It's possible that this time next year, prices will have gone right down again. However, there are so many pressures upwards that I think, and of course, if we do have more lockdowns, as we've seen, Austria's gone into lockdown and other parts of Europe have gone into partial lockdown, this could mean that the supply chain problems continue. Also, there was a great white hope from Russia, the pipeline that they had created, but that seems to have been blocked by the EU or by Germany. So it looks at the moment like these high prices are going to continue because of supply and demand.
Yes, that's right. Germany has suspended the authorisation process for that pipeline. Do you think that the UK government needs a kind of energy crisis room that can mobilise when we come to situations like this? Because people are going to have to make a choice, aren't they, between eating and keeping warm?
Well, it's a very good point. That yes, firstly, the first point that you make, yes, I do think a task force needs to be created because what we've seen is that the energy supply in Britain has been on a sort of just-in-time basis. We've had very little in terms of reserves. And, as Warren Buffett famously said, it's only when the tide goes out that you see who's been swimming naked. And it's certainly the case here. The tide has gone out, and we've seen that Britain has not had the reserves of energy that, frankly, it probably should have. So this is something that needs to be reversed. We need to have proper reserves there. And as for heating or eating, yes, I think with a number of households, particularly the most vulnerable, as always, and we're talking particularly families, single-parent families, they are the ones, honestly, who are being most impacted by the current price rises, particularly if they have to drive. Petrol prices have gone right up. Energy prices, as we're talking about, have gone up. And if you've got children, you want to keep the home warm. You want to keep them warm. Same with the elderly. So for some parts of the country, in some sectors of the society, yeah, it is on a daily basis a question of heating or eating. And this may not happen. This is entirely wrong.
Jasmine, in terms of the market and the key players in it, is this it? Have we seen all the casualties we're going to see, or could there be more who fall on their swords?
Well, it's quite something to have Bulb go, frankly. That was a surprise. There's, there are others. I mean, I've heard from Octopus, for example. They say they're fine. Let's hope. So the smaller players, I don't know. But the bigger players, the big ones, the big six, the ones that we're used to going with, British Gas, E.ON, all of those types, SSE, I'm sure they will be absolutely fine because they've always had a solid business plan, which is based on making really quite a lot of money. Thank you very much. So, they should be all right. So long as the basic cost of gas doesn't skyrocket to something insane for them.
And as you say, so many other variables, like COVID.